Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Glacé Film Club podcast. And yes, here we are once again to dive into a film, tear it apart, and let you know what we think about it. And when I say we, it's not just me here rabbiting on about a film. I am joined by the man himself, known amongst the cultural circles as the person who has views upon high and insights into criticality that only one person can give, and that person is Callum. How are you doing today, Callum?
Good evening.
Good evening.
That was an intro of epic proportions.
I do like to keep trying to raise the epicness of proportions because we're talking about cinema, aren't we? Cinema is epic in itself, so why can't we be epic alongside it?
Well, I agree.
Good. I'm glad you agree. And for anyone joining us today who's not watching us on YouTube, as we informed you a few episodes ago, we are now fully visualized, as is the term of the moment. So if you want to stop listening and watch, head over to YouTube now, as you can see our lovely faces chatting away. I just wanted to say that as well because I've got my new microphone and I want people to see as I've got this, pointing in there. It seems like all the cool podcasters have, so I thought I needed to get involved with it as well, so I now feel cool in the podcast scene. So hopefully the sponsorship money will start rolling in very soon. The day Curzon drop into our inbox, Callum, that's when we know we've made it.
Yeah, great day. That'll be a great day. I went to a Curzon this week.
I was just going to say that slides us nicely into your cultural endeavours. Talk me in on the Curzon experience. Which one? Was it this film? What did you get whilst you were there?
It was this film that we're reviewing, the drama. I'm just going to say it because that's what we're doing.
Fine. It's in the title. We put up this pretenses that nobody knows when they started watching.
So what could we review? It tells
We've finally
you.
now broken the illusion on our 121st review.
Yeah. It tells you in the name. I went to the Curzon in Bloomsbury.
Ooh, that sounds delightful.
In the Brunswick Centre. I even got a Lime bike there.
Oh, that is so London.
It is. I had a tote bag as well. It was all there. The tote bag, the Lime bike. There's been a tube strike this week, so
everything's been cycling around.
Well,
Mary Poppins.
Walking, cycling. I mean, I can't class a Lime bike as cycling because it's got an engine in it. It's got a motor.
Was it a Lecky one?
Yeah, it's like you start pedaling and you fire off, and then you feel like you suddenly you could compete in some sort of cycling athlete event because you're passing people and you think, bloody heck, I'm not even pedaling that fast, but I'm passing everybody, and then you realise it's powered by. You forget that it's electric.
Yes, I have still to this day never ridden an electric bike.
Well, you should with me,
and I want
to. But then, I was going to say we've ridden electric scooters before.
Yeah.
In Europe.
Yeah.
And you famously said, I say famously as if everyone's talking about it, but you said that I'm a lunatic.
Yeah.
When it comes.
I stand by that. In any form of transport that you're in control of.
I have good reflexes. Like I indicated where I was going.
What I would say now is I feel like I back myself on an electric scooter now. That was my second ever experience on one, and it was quite terrifying. The combination of the cobbles and the hiccups and both of us on the same one did add to that jeopardy. But I would say since I have had numerous more experience riding them, I would now back myself to cruise around a European city alongside you on my own scooter.
I do weave though. I get to the destination quickly.
You do, and there's only one speed as well, and that's full throttle.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm not messing around. I'm not waiting behind people. I'm going forward.
Get there. And
the only way is forward.
The cheaper it is.
Well, exactly. It's economically, it makes sense.
Yeah. No, I'm behind you with that. I am behind you.
Well, you were.
Well, I'm always behind you on the scooters. I don't know what way I'd get level with you. It seems like you always find another gear on them. But, one day maybe I'll catch up. We need to do another scooter outing. Maybe we could do a review whilst scooting around. That's probably not advised by the
GoPro things, maybe.
Yeah. Watch this space on that one. Anyway, back to your Curzon experience. Has there been any other cultural endeavours over the last week or so that you'd like to share with us all?
Well,
what about the music scene?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I went to Brighton to see Frank Turner.
Now we're talking. We always like fun. A Frank Turner update.
Yeah. Well, I saw him in Manchester because my friend had a spare ticket. And then I'd already booked the ticket for the Friday in Brighton. I always intended to go. He was playing in London, but it was on a Sunday night. I just didn't want to go on a Sunday night. So I decided I'd never been to Brighton before, so I went to Brighton. It was really good. I had a great time. Went to the gig on Friday.
How many Frank Turner gigs is that now that you've been to?
It's definitely double figures. It could be. I'm trying to think. I mean, I saw it the first time I saw him was when I was in year 11.
Wow! Now we're going back.
Yeah, that was the first time I saw. He supported.
And look at you now, still going strong.
I know. He supported Green Day at the Lancashire County Cricket Ground. And that was a long time ago. So I don't know. I mean, it must be at least 30, 40 times at least.
That's good going.
Because that includes because I've seen him at festivals as well, and I've seen him at random pop-up events as well. Like it's when he's done solos. Yeah. So that's not even with the band.
You've really done the rounds.
I know. Yeah, one might say I'm a fan.
What's all this talk?
Others might say I'm an obsessive.
Hey, it's a fine line. It's a fine line. You decide where you are on that line.
Yeah.
What's all this talk of him playing alongside Bowling for Soup?
Oh yeah, so he's doing a tour. He's playing at the Halifax Peace Hall, actually.
This is an intriguing prospect. Yeah. Well, him and Bowling for Soup are one of my most watched bands during a very intense period in my teenage years of watching them numerous times across various Manchester Academy venues. Still have a lot of love for them, but I did watch their farewell UK tour in about 2011, and they've gone on to, I'm pretty sure, to gig in the UK pretty much every year after that. So it is always slightly irking when a band does that.
Well, I saw Bowling for Soup at Slam Dunk Festival a couple of years ago, and they were okay, I suppose. The thing is, pop punk is making a comeback, isn't it? It's like that nostalgia. Well, the thing is, millennials are having a crisis of identity. And don't get me wrong, I love pop punk music. I go to see a lot of bands like that. But, a lot of them are, I think millennials are having a crisis of identity.
And well, maybe I need to dust off the old recordings from my old band, and this could be the time to re-release them.
I mean, I think you should, yeah. I mean, I'm going to the Slam Dunk Festival again in a few weeks' time, and Medina Lake are playing. And, my brother and I went to see the farewell Medina Lake tour. So we're never playing again, guys. It's the last time you're going to ever see us. And then they're back together. They're playing at Slam Dunk again. I think it's ride that nostalgia trip.
Hey, if it's there, go and take it.
Indeed. But yeah, but Frank Turner, and I think he's called Jay, maybe the singer. I don't know.
Apparently Bowling for Soup.
Yeah.
Jarrett.
Sorry. Yeah.
Come on.
They're friends apparently.
Nice. That would make sense then. That would make sense.
So, but anyway, I went to see Frank Turner in Brighton, and then I had a great time in Brighton. I mean, it's such a lovely place. I've never been before. Had some beers in the sun. It was really nice. And then did basically walked all the way down to the marina. I took most of the day. I had some coffee, croissant things, in a park or something. Checked out some of the bookshops. I didn't do any museums, actually. Did I do any museums? No, I just did a lot of walking. Just wandered a lot. Did a lot of walking.
Hey, it's good to stretch those legs
Had
and breathe in that sea air.
Fish and chips on the beach. Listen to the waves. I just listen to the waves, man. Just the waves.
You just let it wash over you.
And I got a chocolate and sea salted ice cream.
Wow. Did it come sea salted, or was that after you'd walked by the beach?
No, it had actual sea salt in it. And the guy tried to charge me twice. I was like, look, this
the
is
South.
It is the South, isn't it? Yeah, it is the South.
Where like Northerners get charged twice.
Yeah, well, it's true. There's the South. Yeah, I said I was like, Blackpool. It's like Brighton is like Blackpool with a Pret.
Yeah.
That's what
that comparison.
That's what Brighton is. It's Blackpool with a Pret, and more Southerners. That's basically what it is. It's like exiled Londoners.
You wouldn't be seeing ice cream having sea salt in it in Blackpool, surely.
No, absolutely not. No, absolutely not. Like, I think they had to close the beach in Blackpool at one point because it was full of raw sewage. Genuinely, like that. Well, it was after the government decided to. This podcast isn't political, Callum. It was after the government decided to relinquish food, like water standard controls or something, and like waste was just being pumped into the sea. It
just landed in Blackpool.
Yeah. Indeed. Well, I saw a report that it overwhelmingly affected poorer seaside communities. I'm just like, brilliant. That's just classic,
They're not pumping that into Brighton.
No, and well, of course not, because it would offend the southern gentry.
We've really gone off on one here.
I know, yeah, I know. I need to calm down.
Yeah. So that was a nice trip for you.
No, joking aside, I did really enjoy Brighton. It was very nice. The weather was perfect.
Good. I think we should make an outing there. I think that would be nice.
It's good drinking town.
Yeah, I mean, on top of our recording on scooters, I think, just imagine the sound of us walking along the promenade with the sea bashing against the rocks in the background, licking some salted ice cream and talking about the latest flick that we've watched on the big screen. Surely that's audio goodness that people are crying out for.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, another thing that was quite good about Brighton as well, I think this is more of a gig thing, though. I mean, after the gig, I just, met up with people who went completely. I didn't know who they were, but it was quite, it was good fun.
It's a community feel, isn't it?
Well, that type of music in particular, I do think fosters a sense of community just because of the nature in which it's made. Like the bands, I'm in danger here of sounding like one of those, like one of those dads that's like, oh, back in my day, it was like this. This is how it was, But there is, I do genuinely think there is an element of, particularly this type of music that I go to, like that sort of DIY punk rock, where bands have made their name and made their fan base organically by touring relentlessly and going to live music venues and playing instruments live in a live context, and sort of not necessarily earning their fan base, but like working with them. And a lot of the people that I spoke to, go to all these shows and have been going to his shows. I mean, I've been going to see him since, like I said, since I was in year 11. I've been to all these shows, and like, there's just a sense of community there, in the sense that, oh, you're wearing a Frank Turner t-shirt. Do you want to come for you at the gig? And I was like, yeah. Just one in Chalk, and ended up having some beers and, talking about our favourite records and just talking about, where we were from and all this sort of stuff. It was the same when I went to his 3,000th show at Alexandra Palace in London. I was walking to meet my friend in Camden, and some random people just came up to me, and I was wearing my Frank Turner t-shirt, and they were like, oh, you're a Frank Turner fan? Are you going to the gig later? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, oh, amazing, yeah. And then it is a community. And it's a beautiful thing.
And that's what collective artistic expression can do and should do.
Yeah.
And it's the same for film, the same for music, bringing people together, discussing it. We bang on about a lot at film festivals as well, how you get that experience. But there's something beautiful about people sharing an interest in something artistic and bringing everyone together to then express the love for it, but then just bond and generally enjoy life as a collective. That sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, it was exactly the same thing when I went to see the Menzingers. I mean, I've seen the Menzingers so many times, but they're a punk band from Pennsylvania, and I've seen them. I must have seen them now at least 15, 20 times now. Just because I go to all their shows, because they play whenever they come to England. They play grassroots music venues, small music venues that it's cool to see the band in that environment. But I mean, they played an anniversary record of their Rented World record. This was last year, I think, or year before. Me and my mate Tom went to both shows. Just because
you're there, keeping the punk world alive.
Yeah, but again, it's no one. The thing I like about it is no one's there to be seen there.
Mm-hmm.
People are there because they care about the music, they care about the band, and they care about the community. I've never been to one of these gigs and felt as though that I didn't belong. God, this got intense, hasn't it?
That's beautiful.
That
is beautiful.
There you go.
I think that's a nice segue into the main section of this podcast. What a lovely insight into Callum's cultural corner that was.
You have to
such positive messages for everyone out there.
I have to excuse me, they've got this massive water bottle. Like...
There's a real statement water bottle there. That's like, I am hydrated.
Well, it's important for me to stay hydrated these days.
Exactly. So keep supping on that bottle. I will encourage you.
Thank you.
And what I will also encourage is for you to tell us what film we're about to review and give us an overview of it, please.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, get there. We've got to get there eventually, wouldn't we? So, we went to see The Drama. It's written by and directed by Norwegian director and film screenwriter, Kristoffer Borgli. Basically, it's A24's an A24 movie, and we spoke about A24 at length on this podcast.
Yes, we have.
It's kind of like how can I describe it? A black comedy, I suppose. Romantic. It's also, it's basically a black comedy, but it's got the sort of it's like pseudo romantic. It's not really romantic, but it sort of kind of is in some regard. It's got Zendaya and Robert Pattinson in it, who both performances are brilliant. So Zendaya plays a character called Emma, who is like a clerk or something, or like some sort of like artist. Is she an artist? I think she works for like a bookstore or something. And she's from Louisiana. And Robert Pattinson plays a character called Charlie, who's an art museum director, and is engaged to Emma, basically. It's got Alana Haim in it, who plays Rachel. It's Emma's friend, and Mahmoudou Athi as well, who's Charlie's best man. And basically, it's you kind of drop in on their life a little bit when they've already got married, but there's a little bit of a preamble where at a cafe in Massachusetts, Emma's deaf in one ear, and Charlie goes up to Emma and basically pretends to have read a book that she's reading, which is a bit weird because he goes up, and when she goes away to get a coffee or something, or goes to the toilet, and then he comes over, takes a picture of the book, and then goes back, and then goes up to her, explains, "Oh, this is a great book. It's a great book." And then she can't hear anything.
The modern world is a bit weird.
Yeah. Well, indeed, it is a bit weird. And basically, she can't hear what he's saying, and then that's the funny. Basically, that's the funny element of it. Like, she can't really hear what he's saying because she's deaf, but also he's not really saying anything because he hasn't actually read the book. Anyway, fast forward, they're engaged to be married, and they're go to this wine tasting, food tasting thing for the menu of their wedding, and they play a game where you have to say the worst thing you've ever done, basically. It's the worst thing you've ever done. And they basically say these horrific things, and it turns out that Zendaya's character, Emma, planned a school shooting when she was in school, at high school. Rachel's character reveals that she locked a child in a cupboard, and Charlie says he's cheated on somebody. It's not really the scale of humility is constantly under question in this conversation, and then the film kind of spirals from there, in the sense that Charlie wants to try and understand why Emma has wanted to do a school shooting, and he's trying to come to terms with it, but he's also horrified by it, and he sort of spirals mentally as the film goes on. And Emma tries to explain why she did it, or why she planned to do it, but then it doesn't really compute with Charlie, because they come from two completely different worlds. Emma grew up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, in an environment where guns were everywhere, whereas Charlie grew up in an environment in presumably Henley-on-Thames, or somewhere southern, or somewhere nice in Middle England, basically, because he's an art director at a museum and he's achingly posh.
I like how we can build out the backstory of the character.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe that's what we should do more of. We enhance the film.
Enhance the film by quietly judging these fictional characters.
Yeah.
But then there's kind of like a conversation I had about morality, because Rachel essentially admits, who's Emma's maid of honor, basically admits that she locked a child in a cupboard or something, or this child could have died, because she just left him there as a joke. But then she decides to completely disregard Emma's. I was going to say faux pas, but planning a school shooting isn't really a faux pas. But
what way of describing?
No, but that's how it's kind of framed in the film, to an extent. Yeah. I just said this when I was drunk. But given the context of the political nature of gun control, the film and the reason why I'm taking a while to explain this is because I'm trying to articulate the politics of the film, and also the morality of it, but then also the humor of it, because it's very funny in places, but then it doesn't really grapple with the political aspects of gun control, or the political. It doesn't challenge it. It just kind of says this is what happened. Because Emma's father had a rifle, and Emma's was being bullied at school, and is almost kind of self-radicalized in a way. And she becomes obsessed with gun culture and posing with guns. And that's kind of self-radicalization is something that, happens in America. Read about it daily. There's shootings in America all the time because of the decision not to regulate or abolish the ownership of guns. So there's a sort of morality that the film confronts. And Rachel, Alana Haim's character, is so dismissive of Emma's experience, because it turns out that her cousin was shot and is now permanently in a wheelchair. So she's partially paralyzed from a mass shooting survivor. It's Rachel's cousin, and her argument is that I can't believe you've done that because this personally affects me. So there's sort of element of personal experience and morality, and the nature of guilt, and the nature of how you forgive or come to terms with someone's past. But then there's elements of it where I feel like the director is making It's a satire of the hypocrisy that runs right through the heart of particularly American millennials. I think he's making a satire of that, of how just kind of useless the characters are in some regard. I don't know. I after I'd watched it, it was a whirlwind of emotions. It certainly delivered. The name doesn't lie. It is drama.
Yeah.
It is dramatic. And there's elements of the film that I think are great, but then there's elements that I'm unsure of. But I guess that's what we're going to talk about, isn't it? Anyway, that was a very long-winded overview of the drama. One might say it was dramatic, but that was terrible. I don't know why I said that. But yeah, there you go.
Thank you very much, Callum. As always, the drama. So I'm going to start off by going over what my initial thoughts were as I came out of the cinema. And it's a very uncomfortable watch, and I think purposefully so.
Right.
And it's also a very unique and interesting premise. And I like kind of what they did in the build-up to it, where it was marketed as a bit more of a rom-com scenario with a bit of an edge to it, but it wasn't quite clear what that edge was. But it was alluded to that there was a big edge to it, and the actual way the film plays out is a lot darker and, dare I say, more dramatic than you think from the trailer and the marketing of it. So that gives you a bit of a sucker punch, which I think is really good. And it is a very unique approach, a unique idea. But what I think is quite clever about the uniqueness of it is that it's something that on the surface seems ridiculous, but it puts it in a very everyday situation and lets it play out. So there is a part in the film where Robert Pattinson's character of Charlie does actually have this conversation with his colleague, but it feels like it has stemmed from a just kind of like hypothetical conversation of, what would you do if your partner told you that they had planned a mass shooting when they were a kid? Like, it's kind of like that. And it's like, all right, what if we take that and make a premise of a whole film around it, and then we sit with it and see in reality how that would play out in someone's lives? And then the added tension of it's the week of the wedding of that couple. And I think that's fascinating because it's immediately feels really uncomfortable because of the nature of it.
Yeah.
But it is uncomfortable because then it just plays out in this kind of day afterwards where no one really knows how to react. And that's kind of one of the discomforts of it, of dropping something very serious into a day-to-day setting. And it's more of a philosophical question then, and it sees how that plays out. Then on top of that, obviously, it's then doing something with the horrificness and jarring nature of the discussion on guns and gun violence and gun control. And the way the film is edited and some of the shots in there are very uncomfortable. It piles it on. So there's a lot of quick edits which kind of throw you everywhere, where it's kind of flashbacks, but then also there's imagined scenes, kind of dream sequences. And then there's weird ones where Emma, as a youngster, is subbed into her in her setting now, and then you see Charlie like alongside her, and then the guns come in play and stuff like that. So it's a really arresting watch, and it's quite tough and uncomfortable. And I thought from the start of it, I was like, okay, this is tricky to watch, and I'm not really sure what I'm watching and why. But I think that was good because it was a unique idea, and it was original. It felt like it was doing something like that. So as the film was going on, I was like, is this going to be a film that's exploring gun violence? Is it now a bit horror-y, and it's doing something with this storyline that's going to be a bit bizarre and weird? But then also the philosophical element of it. So there was a lot going on there. But what I would say is that I feel the final third of the film just lost its way a bit, because it set up all these unique propositions and put the audience in a quite uncomfortable position to be like, okay, the emotions can be manipulated. Maybe it's asking the audience to make some decisions and thoughts and question themselves. But I feel the final third then just became any other shambolic wedding film. It was like, yes, those plot points it set up provided the through line for it all to kick off at the wedding and all the madness to ensue. But it didn't really do anything with them beyond that. And I felt like the fact that the filmmaker had gone so hard on these very bold topics, but a very unique take on it, there was something a bit bigger or a bit more intriguing going to happen at the end. And then it wrapped up as many films in that genre would. And I suppose the argument against that is, all right, it's this nihilistic element of, oh, yeah, well, it's all just messed up and ridiculous, and that's just part of day-to-day life. And look, they just go back to their day-to-day lives after all of this ridiculousness, like we all do day-to-day, which there's something to be said for that. But sometimes I think there's a little bit of a cop-out, the nihilistic approach. It's a bit like Marty Supreme in that sense, of where it's like, you know, there's credit given to it because it's like, oh, all of this crazy stuff happens and then it doesn't really mean anything in the end. Like, what's that saying about day-to-day life? And it's like, yes, there's something to be said for that. But also, it is a bit of a cop-out because you can do that with any film, of like, thread a load of plots together and then go at the end, none of it came to anything. Isn't that the point we're trying to make? And I feel especially in this film where it made the extra effort to engage in something so bold, divisive, and very emotive and tragic, and then to kind of that then just be more of a plot device rather than something that actually leads the film, I felt cheapened it a bit at the end. So what was, for the most part, quite a intriguing and gripping film, I feel just fell away at the end, and for me it lost a bit of that extra oomph that I thought it was going to get at the end. What did you think in terms of the element of the inclusion of that, the gun discussion, but how that's such a central part, and then this quite unique weird episode, how that comes up and that becomes the central point of their relationship in that discussion?
I mean, I think like two things I think are going on here. There's a particular an American absurdity that I think that the director is trying to tap into. The absurdity, of course, being, you know, double standards, in the sense that you know, you go around a table and the premise of the task, or the premise of the conversation, is to say, what's the worst thing that you've ever done in your life? Is almost a little bit it's sort of like self-destructive in it's privileged self-destruction, in the sense that they're drinking fancy wine, fancy foods. All the characters are from very comfortable economic backgrounds. And I know I always try and bring the class element into it, but I do think the director is trying to make a point here about this caucus of privileged youth that don't really understand the gravity of their actions. They're quite self-involved. And one thing, and I think the Zendaya's character, by admitting that she plans this horrific thing, it takes her out of that that privileged world to an extent, I think. She becomes an outsider because she's articulating an experience that the other characters can't possibly reconcile, because they can't because they just don't understand what could go through someone's mind to do something like that, to plan a mass shooting of children. But then, of course, Alana Haim's character says that, oh, well, you know, I locked someone in a cupboard and they could have died, but they didn't. And then that's kind of brushed off. So I think there's an element, I think what the director's doing is that he's sort of speaking to a sort of like an absurdity of consciousness, maybe, in the sense that, like, what we consider horrific depends completely on the subject matter, obviously, but sort of complicating what morality is and saying it's not that clear cut, maybe. I know that, and that's the first thing. So, sort of speaking to a double standard within American culture. I also think there's an implicit kind of there's an implicit piss take there as well of American society. I think, and its relationship with guns in particular. I do think there's an element.
Because there is definitely a comedic through line. It's a real dark comedy in the way it approaches it. Like, I was laughing a lot. I was laughing uncomfortably a lot, but there was a lot of genuine laughs there. But it's got a lot of comedy in it.
I mean, the thing is as well, like Charlie, who's played by Robert Pattinson, he's just kind of like a blithering English idiot. Like, you know what I mean? He's just kind of like, he's not a director. It's like,
he's the modern day Hugh Grant role.
There is an element of that, and I do think by the way, Robert Pattinson, his performance, and all the performances are brilliant. But that sort of that's why I think the director is making a point about the absurdity of American life. In that regard, that's the first thing, sort of like peculiar American consciousness. I also think, as a side point as well, as before I go on to my second point about the characters, they wouldn't be out of place. Like they were very sort of like Brace and Ellis type characters, and I use that as a frame of reference just because his books are about absurdity and nihilism amongst privileged people in America. So I do think that I do think there's an inspiration there, like sort of a Brace and Ellis kind of vibe going on amongst the writing of these characters. I also think the second thing I think the things going on is the comment on using comedy as using comedy and nihilism, smashing them together and seeing what lands, being deliberately experimental and being deliberately diffuse in your use of genre, I think has paid off a little bit, in the sense that I felt uncomfortable, but I also felt like, why aren't you critiquing this more? Why are you letting these characters get away with what they're doing? Why aren't you critiquing this? But then it's funny because they're so pathetic as characters. I mean, I have some sympathy for Zendaya's character, because there's an element of where the writing we as an audience, we try and understand her trauma as a child, and it tries to rationalize and humanize the reason why she might have committed such a horrific thing. And trying to rationalize the trauma of her experience, to the bullying, the self-radicalization, the cultural obsession that America has with guns. I mean, for example, when I was in Florida, for example, there was a gun shop on almost every single corner. Well, there wasn't, but it felt like there was, because it was so blatantly in your face. The Second Amendment was, is it the Second Amendment or the Third Amendment? I can't remember. The right to bear arms, I think it's the second. But like it's just in your face, and it's like God, guns, country was a phrase that I saw repeatedly on the everywhere when I was in the deep South of America. I saw it in Texas when I was there as well. And obviously there's a political element there. Some states have much more liberal gun laws than others. It's much easier to buy weapons in certain parts of the country than is in others. And I do think the writer is making a comment on that, of just the absurdity of American life, and how it's you can understand why somebody like like Zendaya's character could potentially become radicalized. Someone could potentially commit. Why Emma could commit something like that because of how culturally how it's accepted. So I think there's a lot. Those are the two things that I think he's kind of smashing together. I do understand that A24 didn't want journalists or any of the press to in the advertising of the film to actually talk about this. They didn't want to mention the gun element to it, because I know a lot of gun activist groups have really not been kind to this film. I read that I think it's a parent of the I read about it actually just before we started. A parent of the Columbine high school shooting. Yeah. Tom Mauser, the father of a victim of the Columbine high school shooting, saying it humanized the school shooter. So it's certainly, there's a controversy around the treatment of it, and I think that's why I'm struggling with it a little bit. The film, I mean, because on the one hand, it's highlighting that absurdity, but then I don't know if it criticizes it enough. But I also don't know whether it would be a better film if it did. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it.
I'm going to pick up on that because I definitely felt that, and the fact that the ending went the way that it did, and in my view tailed off in terms of what it was doing, made me think that was a lot of this being shocking for shocking's sake.
Right.
And there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. I think a lot of great art is produced just to shock, because the idea is to put a person's focus on something, or change your way of thinking, or just put you in an arresting situation because that messes with your thought process at that time. I don't think there's anything wrong in that per se, but I think a lot of this film then was like both the way it was edited and put together with these quite jarring flashbacks and weird, uncomfortable moments, as well as the subject matter and the premise of it, absolutely was to shock and to make you feel uncomfortable. We discussed that. That's absolutely true. But the ending very much then was like let's get it back on genre and tie it together, as if to say, oh, look, this is just, they've gone back to their normal lives after all of this has happened.
Yeah.
And like, that's fine. As I addressed that before, it's like, you can have that in a kind of Marty Supreme way, like, oh, this madness has happened, but yeah, they still end up where they started. Take from that what you will. But I think if you engage a topic as big and as bold and as controversial as that, I think you have to do it with some criticality, because if you are doing it just to shock, I feel that there's some kind of, you're giving up some kind of a lack of responsibility there. And I'm not saying that you have to pour over everything and give sides to stuff and engage your view, but you have to show a bit of respect to what you are covering and give some kind of insight rather than just throwing it out there. Because I feel that a lot of the internet and a lot of content we consume now is increasingly going towards just being produced to shock, to get people's attention. And we all know the point of that is it's to feed the platforms, and that cycle goes on and on. But that's why, and we also know the danger of that. We know the knock-on implications of just consuming things that are there just to grab our attention with no criticality or depth to them. And this is why I'm not saying this film was entirely that, because I do think the filmmakers coming at it with a little bit of thought and consideration towards that topic and trying to get you to think something. But I think it airs too far to just being, let's throw this at it, because there's so many different elements that are there just to make you feel uncomfortable. And the fact that the film rounds itself off in the way that it does without doing something a bit more clever or twisted or different with the ending makes me think that the main driver of the filmmakers was to, let's just see how uncomfortable we can make the audience and throw it at you, because that's a bit kitschier and cool and make something a bit bolder happen, rather than going, we've got this great premise, it's going to start a conversation, it's going to be uncomfortable to watch, and we're going to lead it to a place where the characters explore that some more, rather than going, it's going to be a big plot device just for a big showdown at the end, and then be like, oh, hey, we get back together. Like, that just kind of left me feeling a little bit, is this just more of a shock and awe job rather than something that actually is meant to get people thinking?
I did read that it was tonally ambitious, in the sense that it's trying to grapple with lots of these different things, but doesn't really know how to handle it. I actually, my feeling on the end scene was completely different to yours. Actually,
Okay.
I actually quite liked the fact that they made it work, or they
Yeah.
got back together, because in my mind, I'm like, we didn't know this person before, like when she had these thoughts, um, and she explains, the origin and the reasons why for it, um. And then there's an element of like sort of redemption maybe, or starting again when she does that thing. She's like, "Hi, nice to meet you. God, what happened to you?" And it's like a start again type thing maybe.
Yeah, well, I don't necessarily have issue with the
I
fact that
quite like the reset.
they remain together. It was just more like the fact that it was just like throw everything at the screen at the end, just like,
Oh, I see what you mean.
And then he
I
cheats on her, and like there's all this other stuff in
yeah
there, and then that's the element of it, and then and then there's a fight, and there's dramatic speeches, and they just felt like, this is what I mean, is like this quite serious, big and bold plot point was then more used to get to this big drama at the end, rather than that just being part of the development of it to conclude this thought and discussion,
that's fair
rather
enough.
than it being, let's use something a bit different to get to the drama at the end.
Yeah.
I have no issue with the fact that they get back together, because I think that's fine, and that works within the setting of it, but it just felt like it became a bit throwaway at the end. The notion of the gun element and the all considerations around that, it was more like, will she take him back? And there's interwoven bits of that, but it then just became he's now done something bad, and it's like, can they get back together?
Well, that was the reason, one of the reasons why it was it's got such mixed reviews, because the handling of the attempted gun shooting, mass shooting, is just kind of, it's not really interrogated in a way that perhaps it should have been, because the driver of the film is that they're getting married, hence why I was saying perhaps this is a darker way of critiquing an absurdity. It's why I kind of said the characters remind me of Bret Easton Ellis, but then it almost feels like, actually no, I was about to say it feels like a sort of a Philip Roth type thing, or maybe a Jonathan Franzen, but actually it's not. As I'm being much more generous to the film in that regard, because a Jonathan Franzen or a Philip Roth would have really gone to town on the absurdity. But then I do feel like the film is absurd.
It is quite absurd. Yeah, it is. I would definitely say it is.
So
And you can feel the stylings of the filmmaker in that. I just think that, in my view, I think it is more just absurd for absurd sake, without using it to its best of ability by the end of the film. For what it raises, it doesn't necessarily complete. It then retreats into a genre which is facilitated by the absurdity, rather than the absurdity actually giving something a bit more rounded, based around this big, bold kind of question that it's brought up.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder whether I said this to you off mic, didn't I, about sort of like a cultural approach? Maybe I wonder whether there's a particular type of humor maybe that I'm missing. I don't know. Like when they're in the sort of like an outsider looking in, maybe.
Right in with your answers. Is Callum missing a certain type of humour?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Hey, I think that's a good way to round things off.
Let's do it.
I'll start off with my final review, and then I'll pass back to you, Callum. But as I said at the top of the episode, I thought the approach to the film, in terms of it takes this quite bold, uncomfortable, shocking question, idea, situation, and places it in a day-to-day setting, and lets it sit and play out. And I feel at the beginning of the film that is very uncomfortable, but and it is shocking, but it makes you think. It makes you consider things, how if something like that in your own life played out, how would it actually play out in relationships? But then it's also got this much bigger consideration of the whole tragedy, but also controversy of gun violence and gun control and everything that comes with that. So I think it is a very clever premise. And I think for a good chunk of the film, it takes you in a direction which is quite captivating, is uncomfortable, but also makes you consider what they're going through. And I bet it sparks a lot of couples to have discussions of what's the worst thing you ever done. I reckon it could have really ruined some people's relationships. But I just think it loses its way by the end. And it's not that I have the bold suggestion of what I think it should have done, but I think that it goes back to the genre that it's billed as, of this drama, romance, comedy kind of bit, where it's like we have a big ding dong at the end and it kind of just rounds itself off. And again, there's nothing wrong with that, because I like how it's a spin on that. But I think if you bring up topics that are so big, you need to do something with it at the end, and it not just facilitates a classic ending of that style of film. You can interweave them, absolutely, and make a film which is a different direction on that style and that genre. But I feel like it then almost, it brings up this massive consideration, this issue, this very controversial topic, and uses it to get to the end point of the film, and then almost casts it aside because it's done its job getting the film and the plot where it needs to. And I feel like if you're going to do that, you need to engage it and make it the main focus of the film, not just somewhere to get you to the end point. I feel that's where the film falls short for me. So I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, on that, then I think, I mean, almost like it's having like a crisis of genre almost. It takes a lot of different things and smashes them together. And then, yeah, I agree. I never really thought about it in those terms, this idea that basically you take all these ideas, particularly intense ideas, and then you just end it in a way that a rom-com would end. But tonally, it's a bit all over the place, which I kind of liked in a way. I kind of liked the fact that I didn't know how I was going to feel from 10 minutes to the next. Yeah, I thought that was quite good. Thought the performances were great. I'm going to give it 7 out of 10 because I did actually enjoy watching it, but then I also really didn't enjoy watching it. But but I quite liked that duality. So I'm going to, 7 out of 10 for me.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And thank you, as always, Callum. Thoroughly enjoy watching films alongside you and reviewing them as always. But that is that. That was another episode. We've dived into another film. As I said at the top of the episode, we are now on YouTube as well. If you want to watch us, you can check us out on YouTube. Just search for the Glacé Film Club. But of course, we are on all other platforms. And if you have enjoyed that, we always appreciate it if you drop us a review. Tell us what you thought about it and subscribe. You can come and join us on Instagram and TikTok at the Glacé Film Club, where we'll be sharing clips, behind the scenes videos and photos, and that's the best place to join the conversation as well. So let us know what you thought about the film, what you thought about our views and opinions, and anything you'd like us to check out in the future. We love having a chat, so come and get involved over there. But that is that. Until the next time, that was another episode of the Glacé Film Club podcast. We'll see you all later.